This is the UC Hunting Properties Podcast, your home for all things recreational land. Our goal, to help you stand on your investment. Hey guys, welcome back to the UC Hunting Properties Podcast. We've been slacking a little, and it's partly my fault, it's partly Tyler's fault, but it is hunting season and we're in the thick of it. So we thought there would be no better time to bring our buddy Loren Williams on the podcast. Loren's got very, very, very deep roots in Northwest Colorado, and we're going to let him dive into that. But timing-wise, it couldn't be any better either because Loren is officially the heavyweight champion of United Country right now. He was the top producing agent in Q3, $20 million performance in a quarter. So, I mean, the dude's knocking it out of the park. He's got a very, very diverse background in all things hunting and now land, in investing in land. I don't know that there's a better person on the face of the earth. If you were looking for something in Colorado, you should be working with Loren for sure. So without further ado, Loren, welcome to the podcast.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on, Kurt.
Yeah, thanks for making time for us. Or maybe it's the other way around, Loren. We've only been talking about this for 6 months, right?
We'll link up every now and then. It just takes us a while to get together.
Yeah, I like I said, Loren, give us some of your background because it's super diverse. And I don't care if we talk about your old football days, your military days, your oil and gas days. I'm going to let you fire away.
Sure. Yeah. Well, as you know, I'm born and raised in Colorado. I'm either fourth or fifth generation. Pretty sure I'm fourth going back to that. I grew up with a large ranching family background. I was born up in Steamboat Springs. Grew up kind of all over out on the eastern plains of Colorado. Went to high school in Sterling. Had a lot of family here on the western slope. Came back out this way for college. Made it my home after military. I spent 8 or 9 years in the military with Combat Engineer Battalion with 101st Airborne, deployed kind of all over the world. Had a little fun with that for a long time.
Oh, I'm sure.
When I got out of that, that was kind of one of the heights of the oil and gas industry going well here in the West. So I came back to Western Colorado and got involved with that and spent several years. Well, technically I still have a oil and gas service company, although it's not very active currently with the political climate in our state, but still have that and have been a professional guide and outfitter for, I believe next year makes 20 years even.
Wow.
On that one for me. And if I throw a few years of my younger time when I kind of got started in the waterfowl world out there, it might even be a little bit longer than that. But as far as being licensed and working for a paycheck for it, I've been doing that about 20 years now. So yeah, kind of been all over the place. Yeah, I've been licensed. I got licensed in 2020. Been with United Country from the get-go on that. It's been a great ride so far. We've got a great company, great office. I mean, we get to go out and spend time either on horseback or side by side or driving around, looking at properties and these listings and things that we do. And
we got to enjoy that.
The outdoors.
You
did. Yeah. You was able to come out and get a little piece of it.
Yeah. And obviously working with Gary and Jake Hubble. I mean, you guys are, I don't know if there's a person in existence within the United Country Network that doesn't know Gary Hubble.
Yeah.
Like, he's kind of famous. He's like Mr. Senator or something.
Yeah, he's always running for some kind of an office there, huh? Yeah, no, but yeah, he's well known. He's known within the company. Gary likes to write a lot of articles.
Very talented writer.
Sits on a lot of boards and committees and that within United Country and RLI, and so yeah, he's known pretty far in the circles. And we've got a really good team, and we all seem to work really well together and bring different things to the table for that, different experiences, different aspects, but yet all with kind of the same common interests. And so yeah, we got a pretty good group.
You got a great group, and when we got invited out there, gosh, I guess a year ago already, really, or more than a year ago, however you want to look at it. But these guys had a neat opportunity to be involved in selling outfitting business, which truly is something we're going to dive into, nuts and bolts on. But both Tyler and I got to go out and experience that firsthand. And I think, I don't even know, that day we packed in 6-7 miles to check out his drop camps and stuff. And absolutely gorgeous area. We were up, I
Hmm.
guess probably I would call it Meeker. I mean, they lived
Yeah.
in Meeker. But anyway, that could literally be a case study of on its own. That's a very cool success story. And like I said, we'll dive into some of that. But first and foremost, obviously, thanks for your military service. We appreciate that. And you were talking about being a military guy, and I was just thinking as you were giving your background there, Loren, how scary that would be to see you in full military garb, like jumping out of a plane, knowing that he's coming after bad guys. So appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, I used to be a lot bigger too back in my weightlifting days. I'm kind of getting to be a skinny realtor now, sitting around on the computers a lot of time here. But yeah, it was.
You're still a very unusually large man, Loren. So weightlifting or not, because you played some college ball, right?
I was a decent athlete. I wouldn't say I played. I practiced a lot of ball back in the day, but
Right on.
yeah,
Right on.
yeah. I was sports was a big part of my upbringing and my formative years in that. And
Yeah.
I've always been kind of attracted to a team atmosphere, I think, which is why I like working with our team we have now. I enjoyed my military years. I enjoyed all my years playing sports and doing athletics. So
Well,
yeah.
speaking of teams, you kind of just joined the ranks of the top guns because you just got your ALC, right? Like
I did. As a
officially.
matter of fact, I just got notified of that today. So yeah, I got everything in back in August or September and received the email for that today. So yep, I am an accredited land consultant now, which
Uh,
Yuri, and within our
it's
office, he preaches it, he believes in it, and I think Spencer Jordan in our office is the last one to. He's getting close to wrapping his up, and when he does, we'll have 100% of us in our office as ALCs.
nice, nice. Now, Lauren, just if a listener's not familiar with the RLI or the ALC credential, I mean, give us a high level on that. That's one thing we've never dove into on the podcast, and maybe it's something we even take for granted. Being in the industry, it gets thrown around, but it's also it's a top echelon credential. So give us a little snapshot of ALC.
Yeah, so the ALC, which is accredited land consultant, it comes through RLI, which is the Realtors Land Institute, which is a division of the National Association of Realtors. So it does fall under the National Association of Realtors, and it's a group of land professionals. You've got to have it's a considerable amount of education in there. Don't get me lying, but I think it's dang near around another 100 hours of additional education in there. Everything from 1031 exchanges, hunting and recreational properties, water rights, etc. It's a pretty significant amount of additional education. You have to have at least a minimum of now it's $15 million in sales, and that's in land sales that they do. So, and there's
Yep.
a package. You got to submit an essay. You got to tell them what you want to do and why you want to be an ALC, and then go through all the process in there, and then it goes through a review committee into a board, and then from there those boards decide on who gets it. I looked this morning. I believe with this new class of me included, I think there's 72 of us in the state of Colorado now, and there's roughly 50 to 55,000 licensed agents.
Wow.
And last I looked, not here very recently, but there was only about 700 to 800 nationwide.
Sure.
So it really is like 1/10 of 1%. So if land, hunting properties, farm and ranch sales, those kinds of things are your focus, it's something that you should really be working towards. It gives our customers, consumers, clients, no matter on which side of the deal that we're working on there, gives them confidence to know that we know what we're talking about, that we've been there, we've done that, we have the education, we have the
Yeah.
background, we've completed the dollar amount of sales to be involved with it. So it really does help set us apart from our peers in there, when you
Well, and
walk in and you're
I think by
explaining.
default, it's kind of a Top Gun crew, right? Like the ALC credential, yes, puts you're a 1%er, or to your point, 1/10 of a 1%er or whatever as a whole. But all the ALC people are true land pros. I mean it's the top of the heap if you're looking for credentials in real estate.
Yeah, and you've got to have some motivation and some dedication to even get it. I mean, like I said, it's a significant amount of classroom time. Your sales numbers have to be on par. It has to be, we can't just sell a bunch of houses in a subdivision and get
Yeah.
it. 50% of any transaction needs to be the base of value in a land for it. So, when we go in and we meet with clients, whether on the buyers or seller side, and we explain this to them and what it is and what it means and how it sets us apart, it's a pretty powerful tool.
Yeah.
When
And
you
it
sit
should
down
be.
with somebody and they understand it. And yeah, no, you're right. I mean, if you look at the top producers within the industry, most of the time, that's what you're going to find is there's going to be those three letters after their name. So
No doubt.
it's definitely
100%.
something that helps in this industry.
Cool. Well, like I said, I didn't want to make it all about the ALC, but it's something I didn't just want to skim over because that's a major milestone or accomplishment in your career. So,
Yeah, yeah,
especially with
100%.
you being relatively new to real estate, I think you said you got licensed in 20.
Yeah, 2020. Yep. I spent a lot of time with Gary looking at other outfits, properties, and that. We spent a lot of time in the pickup together. He was
Yeah.
my agent, and then we talked so much. He says, "Gosh, with your background and the people and this kind of thing, you ever thought about working in land sales in the real estate world?" And I said, "Well, I hadn't really considered it." And I'll tell you that one. What finally helped make up my mind for that was we were working an oil and gas job in Rock Springs, Wyoming, in the middle of winter when it was about 30 below, and half my crew was sick and didn't show. And
Sure.
I left there after that job, and Gary just happened to call me to let me know about something he thought I might be interested in. I says, "Yeah, forget about that. I might have just worked my last job out here in the patch. What?
You had
Talk to me.
enough.
Talk to me about this real estate game." So then that's kind of from there where it took off. So yeah, I got licensed in 2020, and so yeah, this will be my fourth year in it, and so far so good.
That's impressive though to be 4 years in and have had done enough business to even get your ALC. Because to your point, I mean. I'm not making light of $15 million in sales. I mean, granted, you just did 20 and a quarter, but in the grand scheme of things, $15 million in sales is still a lot of land trading hands. So,
Oh yeah, for sure. And there's some things built into that as well for the ALC. Like in our area in Colorado, obviously we have a very high market that's here.
yeah,
To where versus somebody who may be in like Mississippi or somewhere where maybe land doesn't transact for the price that it does here. You can also bypass that dollar amount for a number of transactions as well.
okay,
So I forget what it is. I want to say 20 or 25, something along those lines. But yes, they just want to make sure that that you're working within this niche, within this industry, for it, and that it makes sense for both sides, for both the ALC committee and you as an agent, that they're having the right people with that designation that's in there. But yeah, we're at an advantage here when it comes to a dollar amount of sales. A lot of our transactions are pretty high. Colorado's not gotten any cheaper.
yeah, and I don't see
Uh,
it going down
no,
anytime soon.
not that many places around the country or North America in general have. I mean, just about
Right.
everything's been on the rise for a long time. But yeah, it's something that I've been working towards for a while. So happy to have it.
Yeah. Well, congrats again on that. So, um, speaking of Colorado and kind of niche markets, the thing that jumped out at me, we came out and worked that project with you guys by Meeker, and it was eye opening for me, and obviously had fun, spending some time with you guys on a super cool project. But you and Gary have kind of carved out a niche market with outfitting businesses, and that's kind of where I want to go with this, Loren. I mean, you own and operate an outfitting business. I think Mesa Outfitters or Mesa
Correct.
Colorado
Yep.
Outfitters, something like
Yep.
yeah,
Mesa Outfitters. Yeah.
yeah. Talk to us a little bit about that too, Loren, because I mean, obviously it's a labor of love to even be in the outfitting business because it's a grind,
It is.
and you've done it for a long time. So I mean, tell us a little bit about that operation.
Yeah, and it might be Gary and I kind of both have a unique skill set and background in that. He operated for 10, 12 years his own backcountry outfitting business. He spent many years guiding fly fishermen and people out of Aspen, Colorado, and all over the West here. And obviously, with my background, when we got into it, so uh, somebody's got to sell them.
Yeah.
And having the background that we do, I mean, when we say that we know it because we live it, it's not just some platitude that we can post on social media. It is true. And, when we sit down to talk with these folks, whether buyers or sellers on there, we understand what it goes. We understand permitting processes. We understand your bookings. We understand the logistics that go into it. We've dealt with government agencies, with Forest Service, BLM. We know how to make the transaction go smooth for everybody. We know who to market to, how to market them. I'm still in the trenches out there with the outfitting folks every day. So, it gives you a little bit more credibility when you sit down and you let them know, like, hey, like you saw this and how this last season went, or how this, and keeping up with all the changes and the game laws and just all the different ways to do it. So, with that background for both Gary and I, it's been really successful for us. I want to say 26 outfitting businesses we've transacted now.
Wow.
Maybe 25. We had one that I'm not sure if we're counting that one in there that hasn't closed yet, but
Sure.
I don't think there's anybody else anywhere that could say that could have that type of experience, that could have that type of number of transactions that have gone through. So, we get a lot of calls all the time. People, they say, look, I was looking up outfitting businesses in Colorado or in the West, and the same two names keep popping up, either
Sure.
whether you're the listing agent or you're the one that helps sell it or how you did it. And, with our marketing that we have through United Country and our knowledge of the industry itself, it's really tough to beat. I mean, I tell a lot of people, I mean, it's a pretty easy business decision when you look at our background as to who to go with
Yeah.
in a scenario like that. And we have the ability to guide our clients through that, or guide our buyers through that, and get a successful close.
So on that note, I mean, because Loren, you're an active outfitter. I mean,
Mhm.
you're still doing it. So you're in the heat, and like I said, labor of love probably more than anything. Because I have no idea how you make time to outfit in the fall, being doing real estate at the level you're doing it at this point. So kudos to you, because I get it. I mean, if you can't be the hunter, at least be in the hunt. That's pretty awesome. So are you running? And we don't need exact numbers, but I mean, how many guys are you taking a year? I mean, is it all drop camps? Like what? Tell us a little bit about Mace Outfitters.
Yeah, at our peak, I was probably around about 80 hunters a year through. We did take a little bit of a step back this past season, this current season that we're in, just because I have been so busy with that, and I've got small children, I've got a farm, I've
Yeah.
got stock to take care of. My wife has a business as well. So, the days of me being able to disappear up into the mountains for weeks on end have kind of
Dwindled.
passed on by.
Sure.
This year, rather than having fully guided and drop camp type hunts, we backed it off to just drop camps and semi-guided, to where if you wanted to add a guide to your drop camp, your DIY drop camp for the year, we do that. And really, I come to that conclusion by looking at so many other people's businesses and outfitting businesses. I mean, when we take these on as a listing, I mean, I've seen the books of not just the ones we've sold, but also potential people. And I take a little bit from what everybody does, even in these transactions that we've done. I'll look
Oh
at
yeah.
something every now and then and go, oh gosh, that's a good way to do that. Why am I not doing that? So I've been able to tailor my own business based on a lot of the transactions that we've handled and helped out with there. And like I said, gotten pretty busy with everything else. So I this is the first year. This is the first year that I didn't personally guide a client
Oh wow.
in about 20 years. And luckily for me, I've got a great crew. I've got a lot of guys that have been with me for years. And
Sure.
so it's kind of the point now where I can kind of toss the keys to them if I'm busy, I need to be out on a showing or be doing something. I'm still there. I'm still there just about every day. I'm still dealing with clients. We're still in and out of, still on horseback, still packing elk, still doing it. But we operate currently, and I've done a lot of different ones over the years. I worked a large private ranch for about a decade, and I've worked, the combination of both backcountry and private property ones. But currently now we operate on public land through special use permit through the Forest Service. I'm the only licensed outfitter in my area, the National Forest. That's there. We do it the old way. It's all roadless, non-motorized area. We pack in on horseback. You sleep in a wall tent. You eat out of a Dutch oven. And we chase mostly elk. We've got some pretty good deer in our area. We got some nice muleys. They usually start coming through here about now.
Sure.
Late October, early November. So we'll do a handful of deer hunts there. But elk's always kind of been my passion, and that's really what I like to focus on. It gets me going, and our area is really known for a high density of elk. So we do pretty well in that sense. But it's a grind, like you said. There's a lot of days where and it was first of November here and snowing sideways, and and you're tired and you're wet and you're cold
Yep.
and all that. It gets to you, but then you get a meet up with a hunter from like your neck of the woods or something, and he'd waited his whole life to come out, or maybe it's 12-year-old kid and heard his first elk bugle or this or that. Like I think you and I talked about this when you guys were out. I mean, I've pulled the trigger enough in my life. Yeah, I like to hunt still. I still like to go out and do it, but I typically get to go on 30 hunts a year.
Yeah.
I get to be right. I get to do everything but pull the trigger. I get to be there for every bit of excitement. I'm shaking just as bad as my client is, I promise, when it comes in. And, so I get just as excited, if not more. I get probably more excited helping other people,
Experience
realize
it. Right.
something that I've had such a passion for so many years. And yeah, when a guy from back east, that opening morning, and we're walking out, and all of a sudden you hear that first bugle light off, and you just watch, their whole posture change. It's pretty fun, and
Well, it's addicting, is what it is. So, I mean, it part of me is jealous that you get to live the lifestyle, being there in Colorado. But it's special, and I don't know what else to say. I mean, I can fully understand why elk basically have your heart, Loren, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think if I had to pick, and this is being an Iowa whitetail guy, right? Like arguably some of the best whitetail hunting in existence is in our backyard. If I literally had to pick one species of animal to hunt for the rest of my life, it would absolutely be bull elk. Like it'd be elk, period.
I think I'd agree with you on that one. That's for sure. Yeah, and I get a lot of we get a lot of clients from down south and back east and the
Yep.
Midwest, and there's always this common little thread that they say, oh, this is they're just like a big turkey. This is like turkey hunting.
Turkey hunting on crack.
So, yeah, I say the tactics are similar, but when's the last time a turkey stepped out and gobbled and a little bit of pee come out of you? Because I can tell you, when a 700-pound mountain horse with swords on its head comes
Amen.
through and screams at you at 20 yards,
Literally
in the woods,
rattles your
there ain't no
insides.
turkey that's ever done that for you. I can promise.
I'm
So
I'm
yeah, and
I'm I'm right there with you.
it's probably just a lot of, and it's the animal itself. It's the country they live in. It's the big vistas, the mountains, the
It's
dark
the experience
timber.
to hunt them, right? Like they're cool, they're big, they're vocal, their horns are the bomb, and they live in some of the coolest stuff.
Yeah.
Period, right? I mean, it's fun just being in elk country, more or less hunting them. But cool. So let's talk about this niche, Loren. You guys, like I said, have kind of carved your space out as subject matter experts with buying or selling an outfitting business, because you and Gary both run them. Hell,
Mm-hmm.
you're still running one.
Mm-hmm.
If someone was interested in buying an outfitting business, Loren, like, I mean, and not to fully put you on the spot, but what are the key elements they need to be looking at? Like, I mean, if you were trying to coach somebody through, or you're playing the buyer's agent for them, like, walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. And that's kind of the first step that we got to do is what type of business, what are you looking for? And a lot of this can be budget,
Mm-hmm.
um, determined by your budget. Uh, the kind of two main ways that we would have one here is, you own property or you lease a ranch, you operate on private property. You've got hunters there. You hunt your place. That's what you do. Or you can operate on public land, or a combination of the two. We've had a few where it's private property, but borders, Forest Service or BLM land, and you've got the permits to then go and operate on that. It is highly regulated in that sense. They don't want just 10,000 outfitter camps, dropped all over the place doing everything. Everybody's usually got their set territories and such.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking with somebody, and let's look at it from the buyer's end first, and how they're wanting to, if they're wanting to do it. I mean, that's going to be the first thing. Are you wanting to operate? Do you have the budget for private property? Is this something that you could purchase enough land to run on? And it usually takes a considerable amount of property out west to do that. We have very large, very mobile animals. You guys might have a buck out there that lives and dies on the same 60 acres in his entire life and never really leaves. Ours, our animals move a lot more. We have winter migrations. We've got different seasonal migrations through. So to actually have enough property to run enough clients through to be able to make money at it and make a living at it, it's probably going to take a pretty substantial investment from that. But on top of that, then you also have a very appreciable asset, and if you got a large chunk of ground, as we all know in the land industry world, that's going to be something that's going to make you money in the long run, and that you've got a good asset that's there. So budget's going to be one of your first ones. If it's a young guy trying to get into it, maybe a backcountry outfit is the way, because you can get in, like for example, my permit covers a little over 100,000 acres of national forest land.
Now, just to clarify that, Loren, because I mean, obviously that's a tremendous number, right? That's a huge, massive land. Now, the way that works, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I may be saying this wrong, right? That allows you to run in there as an outfitter and run obviously an outfitting business on such land or unit or whatever. But it's still public hunting. I mean, anybody else that wants to hunt there can be hunting there.
They can.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that comes with its own set of challenges there as well. Most anybody that's been established for a long time, they're going to have their areas. Now we are permitted, where our camps can go, where we can go, how many days a year we can operate through there, how many people that we can do. So, there are some restrictions on that. And then they just want to make sure everybody, that's doing this licensed, bonded, permitted, insured. Anything that you do on public land in exchange for anything of value is going to require those elements that you go through your licensing agencies and be able to do that and apply for that. So, I mean, out of that 100,000 acres that we have on our permit area, I mean, I'll be honest, we probably only hunt about 20 or 30,000 total of that, because with that, we've learned, like with my area, for example, we know where the public access points are. We know where people are going to be hiking in. We know where guys with camp on their back are going to be. We know the easier trails to walk in that. And so what I've done over the years is to try to strategically place my camps in an area there to where we use that public pressure to our benefit.
Yeah.
We can access back in there on horseback and get back into where most guys can't. But sometimes some of your best hunting is closer to the trailhead that's there, just if you know how the pressure moves these animals. And most of your animals out west here will move off of pressure before they'll move off of weather. So it takes a pretty significant amount of snow to move deer and elk. But, so I've used that to my advantage and been able to place camps, in areas where I know the public pressure is coming in. Second rifle season in October was a bit of a zoo for us. We probably had higher pressure than normal. Some of the units to the northwest of us up here were restricted due to the winter kill from 2 winters ago that were gone on. So a lot of those hunters that would normally hunt there moved a little bit down south. So we saw a significant amount of people come in for that. And, we were kind of all complaining, oh, look at all the trucks at the trailhead. Well, then third rifle, there wasn't a soul hunting in there besides my crew, and we saw the effects of it because the animals just were not moving. I mean, they could go in, they could hole up in some of these deep dark canyons in these places and there's timber, and they just would not come out. So it's a blessing and a curse, but if you know how to do it, I get along good with all my public hunters out there. I stop, I give them advice, we hand them cards, we'll do pack outs for them if need be.
Sure.
Try to keep a good relationship with them, let them know where we're at. and that, but I mean, we do use them as well. And when we didn't have anybody hunting in their third rifle,
Made it
the
tougher.
hunting was much tougher. You know, we
Sure.
needed some of those guys hiking in from the bottom or coming in off of this trailhead and pushing and keeping those animals moving around. I mean, they're a big animal, but boy, can they hide.
You ain't
So
kidding.
it's kind of one of those. So I mean, that's something that when somebody's looking at a business, you know, you want to look particularly at your GMUs. That's your game management units within Colorado. You know, how many people are you planning on taking? How hard is it to get tags and licenses? You know, we're kind of in an ever-changing world now with it, and things change all the time. I'm
Have
a
they
state.
decided if Colorado's truly going to like a draw system instead of just straight over the counter, or like where's that at? Because I know there was some
Yeah.
pending legislation.
So starting in 2025, really about the only change you're going to see there is over-the-counter non-resident archery tags will no longer be available.
At all.
So no,
It's going to be a draw.
there'll be some for some private land, you know, private land only. You can still go in and pick up private land only over the counter and that. But as far as your general draw licenses, your rifle season, they're all staying the same. That's not going to be much of a change. It's there, but the main feedback to Colorado Parks and Wildlife was that the archery hunters felt overpressured and felt like there was a lot of people. And we've always had a lot of just unlimited OTC archery here for years and years and years and years, which has kind of led Colorado to be the fallback plan for most hunters. You know, they'll apply to a lot of these other higher point states, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, New Mexico, et cetera. And if they don't draw, they know they can always come hunt Colorado on an over-the-counter license.
Right.
Post-COVID really saw a massive increase in that. You know, we've gone up by about 100,000 applications in the state since COVID. It would kind of seem to be a resurgence of people wanting to get outdoors at that time. And it's really kind of been since then that Parks and Wildlife took a look at this and said, you know, a lot of our hunters are saying they're feeling too much pressure on the public land, you know, and that was majority during the archery seasons. They decided on that to cut that one back. There's a lot of rumors out there. I get my guys calling me and saying, hey, we heard they did away with all of it. No, there's still, you know, over-the-counter rifle licenses available. There's still some private land options and that are there. But
Sure.
just your basic OTC non-resident archery is going to be going away. Now, I don't think that's going to have much of an effect for at least a few years. You can
Well, the whole thing's still going to boil down to how many tags are going to divvy out, right?
That's exactly it. That's what I'm saying.
If the draw's 100%, it doesn't matter. Everyone's still coming, right?
They're probably going to set the quotas for those tags similarly like what they were for this season, just so they're not coming in right away. Because let's face it, this is where our Colorado Parks and Wildlife gets the majority of its funding.
Oh my gosh, I was going to say it's a huge economic impact to the state.
Yeah. I mean, it takes 12 non-residents to equal what my license would be.
Yeah.
You know, I think it cost me $60 or something for a resident elk tag, where it's 800, 850, you know, for the non-residents. So, I mean, they get a significant portion of their funding.
And that's just the tag, right? I mean, all these guys are traveling in and they're buying food and they're eating at restaurants and they're pumping gas and, you know, who knows, staying at hotels, whatever. It is I mean, I can remember vividly my first 2 years I ever elk hunted were over the counter, Colorado, up in your neck of the woods. We were hunting Route National. And good, bad, or indifferent, it was busy. I mean, there were a lot of dudes from the Midwest. We ran into guys every day from all over the Midwest. And I got thinking about that, and I'm like, we're literally just looking at like one little portion of the state. This is happening like everywhere.
Yeah, and it's been a few years now, but I think there was an economic impact study of that at one time for our outdoor recreation here. And I think they said, like, you know, your average non-resident hunter that comes here spends an additional $2,500 each while they're in the state. You know, between your fuel, food, hotels, travel, et cetera, all the different things that you do that's in there. And that's, I believe last year was the first time that skiing finally eclipsed hunting and outdoor recreation in Colorado for dollars generated.
I'm actually shocked at that.
So,
you know, truly, like everybody hunts Colorado. No, that's cool. All right, we got to stay on task, Loren, because I can bullshit with you all day. But so number one, if somebody's looking to get in the game, obviously budget, right? Beyond that, how would you coach somebody on this? I mean, I get budget aside. If I could afford to come out and buy 30,000 acres of private ground, probably the last thing I'd be doing is outfitting on it if I had that kind of money. But besides that, if somebody was looking, what do they need to be looking for? Coach us a little.
Yeah, so you're going to want to look. What kind of volume do you plan to run? How many hunters a year? What do you need for it to pay and break even? How you gonna do that? Now,
Is there a general rule of thumb on that, Loren? Like, I mean, and not to give the outfitter secrets away, but I mean, is an outfitter, I mean, a successful outfitter, I got to believe, is running on a 25 to 40% margin or something like that?
we're usually shooting for a 50.
50, okay.
We're usually shooting for a 50% margin on there. If most of the ones that we see are going to be floating between 30 and 50.
Okay.
So if you can get to a 50% margin, then you're doing pretty well, and you're actually doing it, and you're making a paycheck for yourself. And it's a pretty intense 3 months, of your season and of your time and your dedication that's in there. So you don't just want to be doing it for free out there, but, and it's kind of like farming. You might only get paid once a year, and that's during the fall and at the end. But, I'm looking out the window right now at 18 head of horses standing right out my door here, and those things eat year round.
Yeah, I was going to say, they get fed every day.
You can't just park them in the shop. They need fed, they get caught up in wire, they need their teeth done, et cetera, and all that. So you want to factor in your year-round costs. If you don't have a base property to keep animals at or do anything along those lines, that may be another factor that's in there. But you want to look at your GMUs, your game management units. You want to know, are you wanting to operate in a big trophy unit? Are you going to be going 10-2, 201, 40, some of the trophy units that are out here? If that's the case, you may only be taking half a dozen clients a year. But, a lot of those are $25,000 hunts.
Big money hunts,
big
right?
400-inch bulls and 200-inch bucks that you're chasing in that. So is it volume? Is it quality? What kind of thing are you looking to specialize in? If it's something that has to do with private property, and tell me if I'm jumping ahead on you here,
No,
you're going to want to be looking at the LPP, which is your landowner preference program. In the state of Colorado, there's quite a few stipulations on it, but you've got to have at least 160 contiguous acres. You can't have a county road running through the middle of that. That then will qualify the property for them to look into it further. They're going to need a huntable population there. And in Colorado, all deer licenses are by draw. So getting landowner tags for deer is pretty easy normally in there. You do have to have a huntable population. If you residing, or that does come through your property, whether it's migratory or they live there, you can't live on the outskirts of town and you might only have prairie dogs, that ever come through there. Sure. And they give you 40 antelope tags a year. That's not going to happen that way. They're going to determine, what kind of a population density of those animals you have and get you qualified for that. There's quite a few other little steps that are in there. And but if there is
key takeaway, as a landowner, you absolutely have some preference in getting tags.
You do.
You're out. Yeah.
Yeah, most of our animals, when pressured, tend to congregate on private land like they do just about everywhere.
Yep.
And in order to work with those private landowners and keep crop damage to a minimum and incentivize these landowners to allow hunting on their properties, this is a way for them to incentivize that. The landowner can ask whatever they want for the tag, for the license.
So it's fully transferable.
Back. It is. It has to be done by the owner or their agent. Used to be I could go out and jump on Craigslist and ask everybody who's got landowner tags, give them to me. I'm a broker and I can broker them and sell them and make 10% or do something like that.
Sure.
That's not the case anymore. You have to be the actual landowner or their registered agent in order to do that. There has to be, in order to qualify for landowner tags for a specific species, there can't be any like over-the-counter option. Mm-hmm. So elk becomes a difficult one in that because, you may be able to get landowner tags for pronghorn or for deer or for something else, even bighorn sheep. But if you have, say, like a second rifle season within your GMU, within your area as an over-the-counter license, then that property will not qualify for the LPP, for the landowner preference program. And this is something that we've seen people get into. They'll buy a big chunk of ground and go, well, gosh, that ought to be worth a dozen elk tags a year. Well, no, because there's an over-the-counter option within your GMU and they didn't research that fully enough. But we have a list of qualifications from Parks and Wildlife that that we'll take with us when we go to look at a property or look at something and find out if it checks all the boxes and see.
Yeah.
Obviously, getting an existing property that's already been doing that is helpful. They've already started the process. Now you do have to start that all over under new ownership if property changes hands. So, those are the kinds of things that can get up there. They can get a little bit costly. You can get a large chunk of property for that. Or, like we've discussed, you can operate on public land within there. And you're also going to want to know, your herd strengths in those areas. You're going to want to know your tag allocations. You're going to want to know your season dates. They do change, east of Denver out there, their seasons are totally different than what we have on the Western slope. The trophy units, they have different seasons that go on in there. So you want to make sure that those seasons line up with your goals and what you want to do.
Yep.
And, we like to look at it from the book side and from all sides of it and see, okay, does this make sense for this person? I just showed one. We've got a really nice one down in Southern Colorado, outstanding business. Folks have been in it for 30 years. We had it under contract, thought that the buyer was good. He went out there and his level of comfort with horses just was not there. Well, they're operating in a wilderness area, and that's pretty much your only option getting in and out unless you want to just use nothing but boot leather. So, what's your, are you comfortable with equine stock? Are you comfortable with ATVs? Or, is this something where you want to drop guys off in stands and blinds? Is this the type of, what type of hunting do you want to do? How do you want to cater that? And what's available to you with the species that you have and the tag allocations that you have?
I want to stop you just for a second, Loren, because the reason I wanted to know about buying an existing business, I mean, is it even feasible to think that a guy from scratch at this point could fire up a business in Colorado? I mean, like with, to your point, you already have the permits in an area. Certainly you go to the next area, somebody's got the permits and so on. I mean, is it even feasible, or like, is the gates to entry literally buy an existing business?
There is, for public land outfitting businesses, there's a massive barrier to entry in that point. Every now and then, we call it pioneering a permit. Every now and then they'll open up a new permit in an area that maybe there hasn't been, or maybe it's being underutilized by the outfits in that area. So they'll say, okay, we can go ahead and add another. If that's the case, you can just as simply go down and apply for it. You get it. Very little money, basically what your application costs are, your cost to write a business plan and put things together. That's extremely rare, though. So for
kind of what I figured. Yep.
For the most part, on a public land outfit, you're going to need to find an existing business that's for sale. Private land, sure, you go buy something and pay $30, get your outfitter license if you want, and run hunts on your private land all that you want.
Or I'm sure there's huge landowners that obviously have an outfitting business leasing. If that business was leasing, you could potentially transfer into that business.
They do, yeah. And those we had a similar one to that, the Silver Spur Outfitters out of Newcastle that we sold a few years back. They leased about 10,000 acres of private property around them, and all those leases came with the business and et cetera that's on there. But, that can be tough sometimes too. Maybe the landowner passes away and his kids don't want to continue it. Maybe, maybe they have a bad relationship with an outfitter and they don't want to do it again. And so sometimes getting into those is tough because, you buy an existing business and then the leases go away. You can get the rug yanked out from under you pretty quick.
Absolutely.
But as far as, the public land ones go, you usually really need to find an existing business, which is a lot of times where we come in on that and trying to tailor that to our buyers pool and who we think that we have that would fit. And there's a lot that goes into that too, as far as if you do have an outfitting business for sale. We like to start counseling people at least a year before they're going to put it on the market.
Yeah.
Just because we want to see certain things.
And honestly, that's where I wanted to go with the conversation, because kind of going from the other side, if somebody's out there with an outfitting business that they want to sell, like what are the key components that they should be looking at? Number one, call you and Gary, right? I mean,
sure. Yep.
Arguably. But in all seriousness, I mean, I think some outfitters get a bad rap because it's like helter skelter, because it is a busy, 3-month crunch and then it's show season and you're booking guys and so on. But I mean, what are the key critical things for an outfitter to have their ducks in a row to make it a saleable business at some point?
Yeah. Well, and the big thing when anybody's got anything for sale is they want to know, how much can I get? What's it worth? How much can I get for it? And we have models for that. And really, we start counseling them right away on get your books in order. One of the biggest factors, particularly for a public land business, is, we consider it a blue sky business, right? You sell this business, yeah, you get the assets, the equipment, the stock, the things that come with it, but you don't own the land. So getting loans on that can be difficult sometimes. So you want to have your business as financially healthy as you can, and you want to show that. Outfitting is a very cash heavy business.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people just for many years just take that cash, stick it in the safe. They don't report it.
Yep.
And, maybe your business is grossing 350 a year. And I'll tell you from experience of 20 years of experience, many people send in a deposit check, a check for the deposit, and then they show up and they hand you cash for the balance.
Sure.
So some of these businesses are 50% or more of, and in the waterfowl and bird hunting world, it's even higher than that because you're dealing with a smaller dollar amount, that's in there. So if that cash doesn't go on your books and it goes in your pocket, then, we use an income model on a lot of these to determine what our list price should be. So you're going to want to claim and show as much of that cash as possible. A lot of my guys, I've said it 100 times, they get tired of hearing it, but you're either going to pay taxes on that cash now when it goes in, or you're going to pay for the business valuation when you finally go to sell. And raise your hand if you think taxes are going down in the future.
Right.
So you might as well get it in there now, get it on the book, show it healthier.
Now that we're going there, old Donnie the Hammer, Donald Trump, a big part of his, leading up to the election, he was talking about doing away with taxes on tips. And I got thinking about that, and I'm like, boy, if you were an outfitter, and to your point, a ton of that money coming in, whether it's them actually paying the hunt, I would darn sure think the majority of tips at the end of the week, that's cash trading hands. So then in my mind, I'm going, then you just sell them a $500 hunt, but the expectations you're getting a $5,000 tip, right? I mean,
well, that's the game we all play with the tax code, isn't it? That's why my CPA makes what he gets to make at the end of the year for
playing the game,
to figure out how to me to pay the least amount of possible while staying out of jail, at the same time. So that's where a good accountant comes into there. But that's really what we counsel these folks for, is get your books in order, have those books looking as good as you can, have all of your bookings. The problem with a lot of things is there's some people that sell when they have to, not when they want to.
Yeah.
And maybe they've kind of lost their steam and been burned out for the last few years, and they've kind of gone down. They're not at their peak of what they used to run. And by the time it gets around to them making the decision of, okay, I'm ready to sell, then they still want that valuation based on when that business was running at its peak, not what it's currently running as.
Sure.
All we can tell them is, look, it's worth what it is on paper, and this is what it is. So you want that as vibrant as you can going into your sale years. We usually ask for 3 years of P&Ls and 3 years of tax returns.
Yep.
And that gives us a good basis that's on there. So at a minimum, if you're even considering selling in the back of your mind, the next 24 months of your books need to be as accurate as possible.
Tighten it up.
And there's a very big factor in there that we've had to familiarize most people with, and that's called SDE, and that's seller's discretionary earnings. Everybody's going to run a business a little bit different. So what are the actual hard costs and hard income that come with that? Like me, all right, I've got my farm out here. Do you think I'd be putting up 400 tons of alfalfa a year out here if I didn't have all these horses to feed? No. So I run my fertilizer bill. I bought a new tractor. I run all that through the outfitting business. Now, if somebody came in and bought my outfit, they may not have that stuff.
Yep.
So we will like to break all that out of the books. As a business owner and as a good red-blooded American, your goal at the end of the year is to always pay as minimal amount of taxes as you can on things. So you gotta take that into consideration along with everything else that you've got going. So, we use as many write-offs as we can in there. Now, when we go to show that business on paper, it may not look that well. So
Well,
we like to tell them, like, start now, start breaking those costs out, start only using, business expense for business expenses. If
yeah.
you can, start doing these things that if somebody came in and bought this, that same expense would carry over to them, or get a good accountant that can pull that out and pull that SDE out for us. And that gives us a much better snapshot of it, of what the business is doing.
And on that note, Loren, because I mean, I don't want to beat this horse to death, because I mean, there's a ton of complexity in buying or selling an outfitting business because of exactly what we're discussing. Is there a hard and fast like EBITDA multiplier that you guys would apply? So I'm going to use $300,000 in gross income. They're selling $300,000 worth of hunts. So let's just say 60 guys at $5,000 a pop, right? You're at $300,000. If the business is that scalable or whatever, I mean, give me just I guess what I'm trying to get out of you is, if somebody's doing $300,000 in sales, what is it likely going to sell for?
Obviously there's a lot of factors in that, but we do have a baseline for it. And usually we're looking at 1.5 times your gross, okay, or 3 times your net.
Yep.
It's in there. So again, that's where you could help yourself out if your net looks better on paper and you've taken away some of those ancillary expenses to make those books factor out a little bit better in there. But normally, yeah, we're looking at 1.5 times your gross or 3 times your net. And that's just kind of a base that we quickly apply. There's other factors in there as far as, your assets and equipment, any goodwill. Like one of the outfits that we have right now for sale, they've been in business over 30 years, 32 years. I mean, what's that worth? Right.
Well, I got to think the deposits on the future bookings is a huge piece of the equation.
That's a big one that we run into as well. And I'll tell you how we usually handle that. We'll usually put that on a prorated basis because, like we talked about, you don't just spend money during season. You've got equipment to keep up with, you've got stock, you've got your permit fees, you've got all these things. So you're paying bills year round. So let's say that we put a business on the market, like when you guys were out here, I believe that was around June.
Yep.
Right. So at that point in there, we're already halfway through this next year. We're just getting ready to start season, right when guys start spending a lot of money. That's when you're filling all your propanes and fixing all your tack and getting your trucks and trailers ready and doing all the different, repairing your tents and doing those things. So we'll typically do that on a prorated basis, but that is a significant amount of cash that's out there that's sitting there in the future, and if you've got an outfitting business and you're fully booked for 2 years out, well, you don't just get to keep all those deposits. Those are going to need to roll. Those are going to need to roll to your new owner in there. We do find creative ways with that and around that. A lot of these that we deal with, particularly public land outfits, there's a portion of owner finance in there. So, we need to know what's fair for both sides in there. How do we make this to where a guy can still buy it, still pay it off, but still take a paycheck home at the end of the year and not just working for nothing? Then we also want to make sure that our seller's getting paid as well, and he's not, stringing it out over a 20-year timeline,
right,
getting there. But that can be advantageous to both sides, versus both, rather than selling an outfit for $500,000 and taking a big capital gains hit. Maybe they put half down and then owner carry it out for the next 5 years or somewhere in there. And that helps the buyer, that helps the buyer come in and have a little bit of working capital. And that helps the seller as far as not maybe taking such a big as a capital gains tax, and getting a little bit of mailbox money that comes in.
Well, and that's a happy medium for both sides, right? I mean, that ultimately that should be a win-win. So, and our tagline, stand on your investment, right? So I'm applying that to, an outfitting business no different than I would if you're doing a private land transaction. I mean, I think the same principle applies, that you're trying to stand on the investment you're making, whether you're buying that business or whether you're buying a piece of dirt. On that note, let's shift gears for a second, Loren. If somebody wants to stand on their investment, let's talk about investment opportunities in Colorado, dude. I mean, you've seen it change dramatically, and I think we're about the exact same age. You're in your early 40s, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Talk to me about investment opportunities in Colorado as you see it. You've already kind of hit on the fact that land ownership out there does give you an advantage, with tags and hunting opportunities, which obviously hunting properties is what we do. But I mean, are there specific areas, Loren? I mean, dive into, people parking money for, I guess I'm going to call it hunting opportunities, but really what you're doing is you're parking some money. It's an investment.
Yeah. Yeah, you are. And we saw that a lot, and particularly this last year. Many of the deals that we closed this last year were people that were taking money maybe out of the markets or out of an asset, maybe an apartment building or something, and they're 1031 exchanging into a piece of ground somewhere. So there's little honey holes throughout the state that not a lot of people know about yet. Obviously, the Front Range and anything within an hour of Denver is going to be, pretty hectic, pretty expensive. There's not a lot of large tracks left around there, but there is still some deals to be had. Now, if you're looking for strictly an investment at the same time, yes, those areas, they have a much higher price per acre. They fetch a lot of money, but that's also going to be where your future development's going to come from. And so you're going to get, a pretty big return on something like that. Now, I hate to see something bought up and then chunked up and then sold, but you know what? That's how people make their money, and I'm not going to tell somebody how they should do it. Right. So, it's always a little heartbreaking when you see a family ranch been around forever and goes to somebody, but it's our job to help transact that, and that's just what we do. But for development potential and that, there's the areas around your higher population densities are there. Your areas around your ski towns, obviously, and that, I mean, I think the average price of a single family home in Aspen now is $15 million.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, you know what kind of a ranch I could have for $15 million, Kurt?
I do, actually.
I'd be behind at least 3 locked gates, and none of y'all could ever come see me again without an appointment.
I promise I would, though.
I know you would.
Just because you have landowner tags mostly.
Yeah, you're a fence climber from way back. I know how those things go. But and on that same note, within those areas, there's a large potential for conservation easement investment that's there. Because those lands are so subject to development that you could get a nice piece of property that you could enjoy. You get the tax benefit of the conservation easement and know that it's going to be the way that it is there. And maybe, say you got an $8 million, $5 million ranch or something that's out there, and you could recoup a couple million of that. And, I was actually just working with a guy this morning on something similar to that. He had a $6 million budget. I found him the perfect place, but it's at $8 million. He didn't think he could do it. And I says, maybe we ought to look at conservation easement and a way for you to be able to recoup those costs that are on there. So there's definitely those. It seems if you get east of the Front Range and east of Denver, you're out there in kind of more of that dry land farming country.
Yep.
It's going to be a little bit more Kansas, Nebraska like, look a little bit more like your world up there. But there's excellent, and particularly big deer out there, pronghorn, the waterfowl hunting and the upland bird hunting is just off the charts. And land out in eastern Colorado could still be bought in, $600 to maybe $1,000 an acre that's out there. So you could put together a pretty good tract, and that's probably going to be agriculture. You could
run cattle,
you
whatever.
Can lease that out. You can run cattle on that. You can lease the farming operations. There's a lot that's just kind of grassland there as well. If you're looking more for big game hunting, elk, I would say Western Colorado and Western Slope. That's where you're able to get more of your over-the-counter licenses, more of your landowner tags be involved in there. But the Plains elk seasons are really slept on, and not a lot of people know about. Now, it's probably 98% private land as soon as you get east of Interstate 25 out there on the Front Range. So Colorado Parks and Wildlife is particularly trying to keep elk from reestablishing on the plains. They were a plains animal at one time. They're trying to keep them in the mountains because they do so much damage out on the crops, and people out on the plains are doing 90 mile an hour down the highway. You hit an elk. That's bad. So they're trying to keep them from doing that. In those areas, they have unlimited over the counter tags. You can go shoot an elk that morning, go drive down, get another tag, come back, shoot one that day. You can
do as many like a nuisance tag, yeah.
Do as many as you want to in those areas. So that area is kind of slept on a little bit. That's there, and there's high numbers of animals that are within those areas. But When you get out on the western slope, which obviously I'm more familiar with. I live out here. I grew up out here. I know how these go a little bit better. There's still the opportunity to buy something right now. Our general price per acre is going to be up, but our appreciation is also much higher than our national average that's out here. So, you buy a chunk of mountain ground, that's going to be a good investment that's for you. Now there's exceptions to that. For cattle grazing, we've sold a lot of what we call sagebrush ranch out here. And a sagebrush ranch is probably never going to be more than just sagebrush ranch.
Sure.
But, so maybe you don't quite see the appreciation on that you would on something else. But, it's been a big source of migration in the country is headed to the Rocky Mountain West. Colorado, Montana, Idaho, and that have really, really taken a big brunt of the population shift in the country. I think we've doubled in population over the last 25 years in the state of Colorado.
That's insane.
So, and then on top of that, the state's roughly 55% public land.
Yeah.
So really there's only about half the state that's even available, for you to purchase something.
But that's also a caveat to why Colorado's going to be Colorado for a long time. There's a ton of public ground.
Yeah, and you would hope. And that also gives you the advantage, too, of, okay, maybe you can only afford a smaller tract, but you come out here and buy you a heck of a nice 40-acre piece, 160-acre piece that borders the National Forest or borders BLM. Now you're bordering 200,000 acres of ground right out your back door, or 500,000, whatever it is. Sometimes it's up to millions of acres.
Yeah.
That you can walk right out your back door to and hunt and recreate and have full use of, but
you can
you're right there.
Damn sure almost guarantee it's always going to be that way. You know what I mean? Some of these big parks and national forests and stuff, like that's not getting developed tomorrow. Like it's not in the cards.
No, and it's not in the, Forest Service, a lot more likely to stay the way that it is. That's USDA, that's why it's there. I have to have this conversation with a lot of my hunters that come out and then they complain about how there's cattle or there's sheep out where we're hunting. And it's like, well, actually we're the guests here. This land was actually established for logging and grazing and for them to produce, for the federal government to produce revenue on. The hunting and recreation came later because nobody in 1886 was going hunting for fun, right? Like they weren't spending money to go out and shoot a deer. That was dinner. That was what you were doing. So it was
how they were staying alive.
Yeah. So hunting as recreation, is really more of a last century thing that's here. So, that gives you that ability to, maybe you can buy a smaller piece that's there, or a big one is in holdings. And that would be where you're surrounded on all four sides by public land, but you've got a nice piece right in the middle of it. And, those have become really popular over the last decade or so. A lot of people looking for that. So finding the right property, pretty much anything that you buy here more than likely is going to appreciate, and you're not going to get hurt on it. But that initial investment for a lot of people is something that can sting a little bit. So there are still deals. And like I say, finding something, particularly if you're interested in hunting and recreation, maybe you like to ride ATVs, maybe you like to hike, go 14ers or backcountry ski. You could buy a few acres bordering up at the base of the mountain right there on public land. I have hundreds of thousands of acres right out your back door that you get to use, but you didn't have to pay for.
Right.
So there's plenty of that. There's plenty of that still to be had, but they are getting harder to find. And, so for us, particularly if it's somebody that's new to the state or new to the Rocky Mountain West, that's what I want to know. What do you want to do with it?
Yep.
What is this? Is it a bug out place? Do you need to be able to have a camper up there and you got to get out of the city when you want to, or just go recreate for a little bit? Are you going to want to hunt? Okay. Are you a bow hunter? If you're a bow hunter, we're probably going to want to be looking at higher elevation stuff. I don't want to show you things in the low desert at 4,800 feet if you're a bow hunter, because chances are there's not going to be very many animals out there during your hot September season. So what do you want to do this with? What specifically, what kind of game are you after? If it's a hunting property, what's your method of take that you prefer? We get a lot of people that maybe their job, I got a guy that I just sold one to, and he's a big landscaper. down south. And so his busy seasons are these times. So really about the only time he could even make it back out here to even hunt was close to December. Well,
Yeah.
by then, almost all of our public land seasons are gone. So it's like, okay, you can't hunt till December. We need to start looking out in eastern Colorado because that's where your season dates run later. That's, when you can get more into the deer rut time. That's when you can get more into the migratory elk patterns.
Sure.
And that they're there where some of this higher country stuff's going to be under 6 feet of snow by then and not usable. That's another one. Access. Do you need to access it year round? Is this a place that you're going to live? We sell a lot of ranches that you can probably only get to 6 months out of the year.
Yeah, that's cool.
So is this something that you've got to live on? Are you raising your family here, or is this just going to be where you graze your cattle and go hunting? That's in there. So
I get it. I mean, there's a bazillion, same thing. Key takeaway, there's still opportunities in Colorado, regardless of what the media tells us or what the tag situation is. There's good opportunities. We're getting long-winded, Loren, so we always try to keep these things around an hour, but here's what I want you to leave us with. Rumor has it you have a 370 bull elk to your name from an area of the state that typically isn't talked about when we talk about 370, because that's, in my mind, 370 is that's the creme de la creme. You get 370. I mean, of course, 400's like holy grail, but you got a 370. What's the story behind your 370?
Yeah, well, I don't want to stretch the tape too much, but it was 366, so I might have embellished there for a minute. And when you said that about what's my big bull story, and that's probably the most anticlimactic hunting story that I have of most all that I've done.
But I think it's funniest.
That just happened to be one that I had an archery tag. I knew that there was some animals floating around. I had access to one of these little pieces of private property, like we're talking about, that bordered up. There was only about 60 acres that bordered up to the public. And the guy was having trouble with elk coming and eating on his haystacks and that. And I thought, well, heck, archery tags either sex, you can shoot a bull or a cow. So my plan was just to whack a cow when it came in and throw some meat in the freezer and
heck yeah,
call it good. Well, the warm sun got the better of me, and I might have fallen asleep on that haystack to wake up to an absolute monster that nobody had ever seen in that area. Nothing had ever, you know how it is. If there's a big buck in your county, you've probably heard about it by now, haven't you? You've probably seen a trail cam picture.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody knows.
Somebody knows. It, right.
And when you start talking about that class of a bull that is not seen in these areas, I mean, this is an over-the-counter unit and stuff that's there. So I woke up and here he was coming right on a rope to me and got shot with a bow. And
how far was the shot, Loren?
It was only like 18 yards.
Oh, chip shot.
I was just getting the sleep out of my eyes, there, and just had to go ahead and take one. And here's one for you, though, and if you ever come back out here, I'll have to show you. But he's got a big old bullet hole in one of his antlers. And this is during archery season, so no rifle seasons had opened yet. So
sure.
Somebody knew he was there, and somebody tried to get a jump on
on
the season. But, I was able to take him. Still one of the largest bulls, if not the largest ever taken in that county that was there. And I've spent so many years guiding and outfitting that, sometimes I've been lucky enough to take several, nice bulls. Yeah. But Colorado's not known for its size of elk. We're managed for our numbers.
Well, and there's still units out there. Some of your guys' special draw stuff. I mean, turns out some crankers. I always screw this up. Is it 16 or 61? That's
61.
61.
Yep. Yeah. And that's right out my window here to the left.
That's what I thought.
I'm looking out the window at the Uncompahgre Plateau. Here right behind me. So 61, they produce some good bulls. I think you follow some of my outfitting page. You may have seen that one we got this year. That was about a 330-inch bull.
That was a dandy.
Over-the-counter public land. That does not happen.
No, that's a happy hunter.
So, and it was one of my repeat clients, and he was awesome. Very, very pleased with that one. He'd seen this bull. They were on a 9-day hunt. He saw this bull first day, and he hunted him every single day.
I don't blame him.
For 9 days, all over the whole mountain, and that was able to get it. So these public land monsters, they do pop up from time to time, but they are rare. So when you're able to see the deal on one of those, that really is a pretty good accomplishment.
That's the cherry on the top, yeah.
But yeah, I get a lot of my hunters, they'll kill a very nice bull, and then, oh, you're probably not impressed by it. You've probably killed 100 like that. I'm like, actually, that would be my second biggest elk I've ever killed. They think just because
Wow.
I've been outfitting and doing this forever that I've got a trophy room to rival Jim Shockey, but I don't. Most of mine have been whack a cow for the freezer each year and save the
Sure.
good ones for the clients.
Well, and that's,
So,
in my opinion, that's how an outfitter should operate.
mm,
Really. But no, that's funny. When you told me you were literally sleeping on the haystack and wake up and there's a 370 standing there, I'm like, man, that's too good not to talk about. But
yeah,
Lauren, we sure appreciate your time, buddy. We love having you as part of UC Hunting Properties. We enjoyed our time, and we do want to find our way back out there when there's the next right project to come out and work with you guys. But all that said, dude, we'll turn you loose. Good luck for the rest of the year. I don't know what's left in store for the business side of it, but if you or the family get out there hunting, good luck. And like I said, appreciate your time today, buddy.
yeah, no, thank you guys. Thanks you, Turtle, everybody that does everything and helps put it out there. Travis, for kind of you guys all taking off on this UC hunting property thing, and I think we get a lot of mileage out of it out here, even out west. We just got to get rid of any logos that have white tails on them and stuff because
Hey,
that don't really fly out
you
here.
can
We're
do
gonna,
whatever you want. And Colorado
yeah,
does turn out some big whitetails. Maybe not
we
right in
do,
your
we
neck of the
do,
woods,
yeah.
but that
Yeah,
eastern
yeah,
side has some crankers.
that one I
Yeah,
was showing on my
look at
wall
that
there. He's an
sucker.
eastern Colorado buck that come out of there, but yeah, no, appreciate everything you guys do and enjoy it. And I'm sure we'll probably be seeing you here at a convention later on. But
Won't
other
be
than
long,
that, yeah,
brother.
make your way out west. You always got a spot out here. So
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
you bet. You guys have a good one.